it's always so odd to talk about the brain in terms of mechanistic metaphors. So I'll go to plants. We've all got the tendrils of permaculture garden that can possibly be nurtured to hold us. But if we've never ourselves experienced being held with warm resonance, then our brains actually don't even know how to
Mm,
turn toward us with warmth and hold us.
right.
We don't even realize that it's possible.
Mm,
No one, and we live in this world where, there's this fight, flight, freeze, and no alarmed aloneness named anywhere. We live in this world where nobody really models it for us either. I
mm,
mean, if I think about my mom, my mom believed she was not okay, and she survived by not thinking about that. And there's a similar way that's how my dad survived. They were both depression babies. I mean, they had more important things to to think about besides personal growth and transformation. They were
right.
trying
Yeah.
to make sure there was enough food.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah,
Depression based on not having food on the table, and
yeah, exactly.
yeah.
From the Great Economic
Mhm.
Depression. Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
So, we live in a world where there's not a lot of modeling of what is it like to be warm and resonant with ourselves.
Hmm.
So there's an entire path of awakening the 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 tendrils that will reach from the part of us that can be intentional, that will reach in and hold our own selves, like to reach into our baby self and hold her or him or them. This sense of the possibility of warmth. And we can we usually have to grow these neurons. It's
Hmm.
often there are, when people begin to work with this, like if somebody hears this interview and they get excited and they're like, growing my neurons of warmth, what can I do? And they begin to follow this path, um, then uh, if there's a bump at about 8 months where they go, oh, holding the self with warmth, I'm starting to understand what that might mean. And
Hmm.
there's another bump at about 3 years where they go, oh, holding the self with warmth, I can do it when I'm intentional, but now I'm starting to notice that most of the time, unless I intentionally awaken and turn toward myself with these sweet neurons, I am just cold to myself.
Mm.
And this is that voice, that self critical voice that's running within us all the time as we start to hear it. That's the voice of how we're automatically holding ourselves. Sarah, how could you be so stupid? What do you think you're doing? People don't want to listen to you. You shouldn't speak. There's like a whole litany of from simple, like neutral voice all the way up to actively cruel and self-loathing. And the more we have self-loathing, the more trauma we've lived through.
Mm.
So this is another piece of the puzzle with both anxiety and depression. How much trauma have we lived through?
Right.
And so when you're asking about strategies, some of the strategies are, you can get the book Your Resonant Self, which takes you through everything we've been talking about in much greater detail. But you also don't even have to spend any money at all. There's a free meditation series that you'd be
Mm.
able to access. That's on the website yourresonantself.com. Um, and you can just, people begin to listen to these meditations every day as a way to begin to awaken the sensation of being warm with ourselves, the sensation of saying to ourselves, you make sense. And there's wonderful research that shows that when we actually use our own names, when we're being warm with ourselves, we are starting to differentiate between the part of our brain that's capable of bringing the warmth and the part of our brain that needs the warmth. It's like if I say, Sarah, Do you need a little acknowledgement that it's fun to be on the call with Andy,
Mhm.
and it's really exciting, and there's this wonderful imagining of the people that might get this and go, oh, this will help me. And so when I say that, when I use my own name, there's a perking up of the inner self in response. So these are the kinds of things that we can begin to do. We can begin to do daily guided meditations that are focused on this. We learn to use our own name when we talk to ourselves. Start to identify what kind of language, because if we tell ourselves what to do, that's not being warm and resonant with ourselves.
Mm. Right. I noticed like you're asking yourself questions as opposed to like
Yeah.
telling you do this or don't or whatever. You're like, oh, Sarah, do you need some acknowledgement for the excitement or the
Yeah.
whatever? So that's like asking yourself questions and
Yeah.
inquiring in a loving way. I love that.
Yeah.
I could
Yeah.
feel that. I could feel that, right? Like warmth and lovingness towards yourself when you use your name. I think
Yeah.
that's a really beautiful example.
Yeah. Yeah. So those are some of the starting points. And to acknowledge, I think, with depression, to begin to develop the capacity to very gently sit with ourselves and to say, oh, of course you don't have any energy. Just like, because of course with depression, there can be those terrible spikes of fear that it'll never lift, fear that we'll just sort of melt into nothingness, fear that we'll become homeless because we can't function. There are so many fears that come with the way that depression debilitates us. And, and, and we need to develop the resilience to be able to go, of course. And it's even sweeter to develop the resilience to say, of course you're exhausted. And of course you're wiped out. Let's just remember what happened in the couple of years before the depression hit. Let's name the blows and blocks that our body has lived through. Just so that and this is a way of making sense of our lives, not in a self-pitying way, not in a victim way, but in a gentle warmth and factually based acknowledgement of the hits and the way they impact human nervous systems.
Avaya has changed my life.
Avaya has made me the woman I am today.
Avaya is my home.
Avaya is personal freedom.
Avaya is the reason my life continuously improves.
Let everyone in your life know about Avaya.
Everyone needs to know about this amazing company.
Thank you, Avaya, for appearing in my inbox.
What Ike Allen and Andy Anderson have created at Avaya is what the world needs.